Junpei, Clover, and Lotus leapt out of the laboratory, slamming the door shut behind them. All three collapsed against the wall, breathing heavily. Junpei's heart was pounding in his chest, and his whole body felt weak. He inhaled gulps of clear air, and with each one, he could feel his body begin to calm down. All right, let's go. They nodded to each other and started off down the hallway. Before long, they found a few new doors, but all of them were locked. Soon they had tried all the doors but one. The final door sat in a corner of the hallway. Junpei grabbed the door handle and was able to pull it open when a voice cried out behind him. It was neither Clover nor Lotus, but he recognized it. There was no doubt. The voice belonged to Junpei. He spun around. There, at the other end of the hall, Junpei saw human figures running toward him. 3 of them. June, Santa, and Seven. They stopped short in front of Junpei and his companions, gasping for air. Hey, what are you guys doing here? What? But we didn't... Before he could finish, Clover spoke. Guys, could you come over here? She was standing near the end of a small hallway that branched off to the right. The rest of them ran over to her, curious as to what she'd found. There was something on the wall at the end of the hallway. It's a map. A map of the ship's interior. It said C deck on the upper leftist corner. Most likely, they assumed, it was a map of the floor they were on. Door 7 and Door 8. The map confirmed that they were already new. Both doors eventually led to the hallway where they had found themselves. In fact. Yeah, isn't that what I said? Till we find that 9 door, Zero ain't gonna split us up. We might get separated for a little while, but we'll see each other again. Otherwise, we can't open door 9. That's how the Nonary game works. Junpei looked at the map of the ship's interior again. As he looked more closely, his surprise and excitement gave way to weariness. One by one, the others saw what he'd seen. As one, they all moved back toward the door Junpei had only a moment ago been ready to open. He pulled the map of the ship's interior off the wall and put it in his pocket and followed the others. The 6 of them stood in front of the door, arrayed in a semicircle. Santa stepped forward. He took hold of the door and spoke, without looking back at the other 5. Ready? I'm going to open it. They nodded their silent assent. With a deep breath, Santa threw open the door. They poured through the doorway and into the room. Even without looking around, each one of them knew where they were. They were just where the map had said they would be. The same room they'd been in not so very long ago. The tremendous central hospital room, with empty beds from wall to wall. I see. I believe I understand what you're saying. The 6 of you split into 2 teams and went through doors 7 and 8. You solved the puzzles in the operating room and the laboratory, and then met one another in the hallway after opening your respective locked doors. He looked like anyone might, after only just waking up, but it seemed that his brain was working as well as ever. He had managed to grasp, summarize, and understand each team's report. At any rate, I feel a bit silly for my little show of altruism. I'm sure you'll be back for me. I did hope you would come back, but I confess I didn't think you'd be back so soon. He shook his head with a rueful smile. Well, we saw each other again, and we ain't dead, so I say that's good enough. Seven smiled. Anyway, I say we ought to get out of this creepy old place. We found the key we needed. The key. Ain't that what I just said? I'm talking about the Jupiter key. We found it in the operating room. Here. Seven tossed something small and metallic toward Junpei. He caught it and found that the object was a key. "I am the key master, give me all your keys." On it, someone had engraved a symbol very similar to a fork. He looked over at June, who nodded back. It had to be the Jupiter symbol. "I'm gonna let you hold on to that, alright?" "Yeah, got it." "Well, I've got something for you too, then. Here, this is Saturn key card. We found it in the kitchen. I might lose it, and it's probably better if you hold on to it. That way it won't be my fault if it gets lost." And with that, she pressed it into Junpei's hand. He felt slightly less than honored. As a group, they now had 3 keys that had not been used. The Earth key, which had been found in the laboratory. The Jupiter key, which Seven had just handed to Junpei. The Saturn key card, which Lotus had just handed to Junpei. Junpei tucked the new keys into his pocket. June spoke up. "The Jupiter key is supposed to be for the door at the end of that long, straight hallway, right?" "Yeah. If the map's right, then it connects to the central staircase. Next to the stairs." Wait. They were the first words anyone had heard out of Clover in quite some time. Her face suggested they weren't going to be very happy words. "What about door 3? Look, you saw the map, right? It's the same as 7 and 8. It just leads us back to the big hospital room. There's no point to seeing what's on the other side of that door." "There is a point. At least there is for me." There were tears in her eyes, but she glared at Seven, as hard as she could, just the same. She looked very much like a frightened puppy. There wasn't a man alive who could have resisted those eyes. Seven looked everywhere in the room except at Clover, and muttered and coughed apologies under his breath. "Yeah, you're right. I'm sorry. Snake might be on the other side of door 3. Clover nodded once. And the next person to speak was Ace. "Very well, I'll be coming with you then. I've had a nice long rest. I think it's time I was up and about again. So, Seven, you'll help me, won't you?" "Huh? Me?" Junpei did the calculations quickly in his head. "Some math?" It looked like Seven was doing them too. At last he gave up. "Well, I guess that's how it's gotta be. So I'm going with you, huh?" "Yes, you are." "Alright, let's get moving." And so it was decided that Clover, Ace, and Seven would discover what lay beyond door 3. Okay, we're heading out. Be careful. Whoa, didn't think I'd be hearing that from you, Lotus. Don't let it go to your head. I'd be in trouble if the 3 of you bought it. The rest of us can't open door 9. The truth comes out. Seven nodded as if this answer made much more sense, and pulled the lever on the red. Okay, let's go. The door opened and Ace, Clover, and Seven jumped through it. 6, 7, 8. After exactly 9 seconds, the door closed noisily. Alright, we should get moving too. Huh? Get moving? Where are we going? Everyone except Lotus seemed rather confused. Well, it would be a waste of time to just sit around, wouldn't it? Let me explain. I get it. We're gonna see if we can get anywhere interesting with the Jupiter key. Yes. If we're lucky, we might find Snake. They were at the end of the hallway lined by individual hospital rooms. The Jupiter symbol was engraved on the keyhole. Alright, Junpei. Open it if you please. Yeah, on it. Junpei pulled the Jupiter key out of his pocket and slid it into the keyhole. He twisted. Oh, wrong key. I grabbed the Earth symbol key. With a nice sharp click, he felt the door unlock. Alright. Ready, guys? Junpei's companions nodded. He nodded back, then slowly and quietly opened the door. Inside was exactly what he expected to see from the map of the ship's interior. They were in a tremendous hall, almost like a ballroom, with a massive central staircase. Great. Back to the beginning. You sure this is a good idea? What do you mean? Well, we already searched every inch of this room, didn't we? I'm asking you if there's any reason we came back here. Duh. The other doors? Of course there's a reason. Man, sometimes I can't tell if you're smart or just lucky. Huh? This. Junpei pulled two things out of his pockets. The Saturn keycard and the Earth key. Santa cocked his head to one side like an inquisitive bird and looked at them. After several long moments during which it became apparent that Santa had no idea what the cards meant, June took pity on him. Don't you remember, Santa? On C deck where we are now, there was a big elevator behind the stairs, remember? And next to the elevator, there was a card reader with the Saturn symbol on it. And on A deck, on the door to the left, there was a keyhole with the Earth symbol on it, I think. So the two keys that Junpei has should let us use the elevator and the door on A deck, huh? Yes, that's right. June smiled, pleased with herself. So did Santa. Alright, I got it. Let's get started then. What do you say we split into two teams? Lotus and I will search the Earth one, so you two can search Saturn, alright? Sounds good. Junpei handed the Earth key to Santa. They decided that their initial search should be brief, only 10 minutes. They'd be back near the staircase once they were done. Junpei and June headed for the elevators. Sure enough, there was a card reader bolted to the wall next to the left elevator. He lined up the Saturn key card and swiped it through the reader. A light on the upper left corner blinked to life. Great. Looks like it's working now. Alright. Now how do I call the elevator? There was a single button to the right of the elevator door. On the button was the upside-down triangle, the universal symbol for down. There didn't appear to be an up button. Junpei pushed it. He didn't have much of a choice. It opened. Look, Junpei. June's voice was excited, but Junpei could hear a tinge of anxiety. Sweet. It opened. Let's get going. He grinned at June and stepped toward the open door. As he was about to set foot in it, he felt a hand on his arm. Well, wait. What? I'm not really... Oh gosh. Junpei was at something of a loss. What could she possibly be so frightened of? June was probably afraid of being locked up alone with a boy. They could only go down. She was afraid because the only elevator button pointed down. That meant, of course, that the elevator couldn't go any higher on the floor they were on. As he thought about it, Junpei realized he hadn't seen elevators on A or B decks near the central staircase, all of which meant that the elevator could only convey them to the lower decks. And the floor below the one they were on, D deck, should be completely submerged. That meant... Hey, wait a minute. This elevator came up from somewhere under us, right? Well, yes, I guess it did. It didn't open right away after you pressed the button. There was a motor noise like it was moving, and then it opened. Yeah, exactly. Yes, so take a look inside. Junpei jerked his head toward the interior of the elevator. It's not wet at all, is it? The walls and even the floor are totally dry. Oh, you're right, they are. She looked around the elevator, slightly embarrassed. Well, let's test it. Test it. Yeah, watch this. Junpei put one foot in the elevator and bent around the corner of the door until he could see the floor buttons. There were only two, E and C. He pushed the E button and jumped out of the elevator. The door slid shut and they heard the grinding of the motor as the elevator car moved down. A few moments later, they heard the sound of the elevator door grinding open several floors below. Junpei nodded to June and pressed the elevator button again. A few moments later, the elevator returned. The door slid open, and just as Junpei had expected, there was no water to be found. See? Junpei couldn't resist puffing out his chest, just a little bit. June, however, still looked confused. What does that mean? How can the E-deck be safe if the D-deck is full of water? Well, here's what I think. The elevator shaft in the E-deck must be watertight and separated from wherever the ship has been punctured. Here, let me show you. He pulled out his notebook and pen and sketched out a rough illustration. I see. So is this why the ship hasn't sunk? The shape of the inside keeps it from filling with water. Yeah, I think that's what's going on. Junpei continued talking as he closed the notebook and slipped it back into his pocket. Well, I'm gonna go down and check it out. You stay here, alright? But... Come on, just do it, alright? He gave June's shoulder a reassuring squeeze and then hopped into the elevator. He pushed the E button and the door began to close. June looked worried, her eyes darting back and forth as if she was trying to make a decision, when suddenly... I'm coming with you. Huh? At the last possible moment, June dashed forward, turning sideways just in time to slip through the gap between the closing doors. Junpei jammed his finger against the open button, but it was too late. The door had shut. He and June were in the elevator and was heading down to E-deck. He was so surprised by June that he didn't even have time to think about what awaited him on E-deck. The elevator stopped and the door slid open. They stepped off onto the floor outside the elevator. Nothing seemed especially unusual. No fish going about their fishy business, or jellyfish floating lazily through the water. There was, however, a blowfish, or at least something that looked very much like one. June's cheeks were puffed out, and her mouth a tiny, intense frown. Oh, knock it off. It's just like I thought. This part hasn't flooded. Come on, just look around. There's no water here. June looked around nervously, then... Exhale. You're right. It's not flooded at all. See? There's a whole lot of water. Yeah, right. On top of us. What's going to happen if the ceiling breaks? Junpei thought about that for a moment. We'd probably die. Oh no. Don't be so casual about something like that. At any rate, we should probably go back as soon as we can once we're done looking around here, down here. Lotus and Santa might already be back. Okay. Good idea. Junpei glanced around the room they'd found themselves in. The first thing he noticed was a set of thick iron bars. They ran the length of the room, separating the left elevator from the right one. Well, we can't go over there. Right. Then perhaps. In the corner of the room that housed the elevators, Junpei found an opening. He walked up to it and stuck his head around the corner. A long, straight hallway stretched out in front of him. That door at the end of the hallway. There's something written on it. Yeah, let's go have a look. You can't see it from here. It's a 6. Junpei and June set off down the hallway at a brisk clip, somewhere between a run and a jog. Before long, they found themselves in front of the door. On it was a number written in bright red paint. 6. I knew it. This is a numbered door. And indeed, there was a red bolted to the wall right next to the door. Of course, with only 2 people, there wasn't much they could do with it. Alright, let's head back. Yes. Junpei and June turned and headed back to C-deck. On their way back, Junpei noticed a map on the hull. As it turned out, it was a burnt map of the ship's interior for E-deck. Huh. So you guys found door 1. They'd met back up with Santa and Lotus, who would explain what they'd found. Apparently there was another numbered door on A deck, just like the one on E deck, beyond the door that the Earth key was opened. According to Santa and Lotus, there was a 1 on the door. All told, they had discovered 2 new doors, the 6th door and the 1 door. It is interesting that E deck wasn't flooded. Lotus was quiet for a moment, lost in thought. Well, we don't really know if all of E deck is safe. We only checked the area around the elevator. Even so, it's still very interesting. You said the 6th door was there, right? Yes. Then that means Zero planned all this out, even the sinking. That would have meant some pretty serious remodeling of the ship's interior. It's pretty mind-blowing when you think about it. Yeah, I wonder how long it took. I can't even imagine how much it must have cost. It would have been a ton, that's for sure. Well, that does go along with what Ace was saying. The most reasonable explanation would be that this was done by some organization, with access to a whole lot of cash. Yes, it does make sense. That thought made them all go quiet for a moment. June bit her lip, while Lotus sighed softly to herself, and Santa cracked a stiff back and stared off to the distance at nothing. I don't think it's a very good idea to stay here. June looked up at Junpei with large, pleading eyes. Yeah, you're right. Ace and his team might be back already. Well, Junpei, and I should be able to open door 1. Oh, you guys leaving me behind? Math. Just kidding. Alright, let's go. Lotus's words were all the impetus they needed. Back to the large hospital room they went. The moment they stepped inside, a tremendous voice echoed across the room. Hey! Where did you guys go? It was 7. Ace was right behind him and Clover was behind Ace, although she seemed to be hanging back. It looked as though there was something strange about them. 7 had the look of a man who'd seen a ghost. Ace was just as pale, and Clover looked as though she was only moments from passing out entirely. For a long moment they simply stood there, looking at one another. Junpei looked around nervously, waiting for someone else to speak. No one did. He looked at 7. What happened? What kind of question is that? 7 was trying very hard to be angry, but something had shaken him. Hard. His shoulders were trembling and his voice was strained. Snake is. 7 couldn't finish. He just looked away, his face twisted by. Junpei wasn't sure what. Instead, Ace spoke. He took a deep breath, closed his eyes, and spoke. Snake is.